I got to think that this expectation for any coach should be that you win roughly 10 games every year. And therefore, you're going to put yourself in a position every few years to go to the SEC championship game. You should be like splitting SEC championship game appearances with Georgia, let's say.
Yeah.
Or, throw in the oddball year where somebody else gets into the mix. So maybe you're not going to quite half of the SEC championship games, but close. And as you stated off the top, basically, if you're competing for the SEC championship, you're competing for a national championship. That's all there is to it. You're that good. And if you're
Mark, the worst thing that probably could have happened to Dan Mullen was Ed Orgeron and LSU winning a national championship 2 years ago. I mean, because rosters are pretty comparable. You got elite quarterback play, which you had at Florida last year, and the defense just the bottom fell out. And I'm not so sure Dan Mullen could have predicted or seen that. I don't think anybody predicted that, by the way. So, 2020 was your shot. 2020 was a chance it was supposed to come all together for the development, and you had the development at the quarterback position. You had an all-world tight end. You had Kadarius Toney step up and be one of the country's best wide receivers. And if Florida would have had any defense from the last 10 years, they're a really good chance of in the playoff. But the defense didn't show up at all. And the year everybody was kind of pointing to for everything to come together just did not come together.
Yeah, because that team probably loses to Alabama in a classic, but they're undefeated going into that game. So they're in the playoff. Or maybe they beat Alabama.
One possession game with that sorry defense.
Sure.
I mean, who knows?
Well, that said, you bring us to the point of going into 2021. I know as you review the roster, the talent, and everything, you have that feeling of, okay, we're cycling up and man, can't wait to see this team. Or, of course, it's football season. We're interested, but realistically, we really don't have it this year. There's always that feel for where's the roster, look at the schedule. So I don't know that there's a team across the country that's at a high level that I see more discrepancy about predictions and projections than I see Florida. I see them solidly in a lot of people's top 10s. Mm-hmm. Then I see other people saying, shoot, they lost all that offensive talent. They're barely in the top 25. They're going to win 7 or 8 games. Where do you see this going?
Yeah, I was surprised. You go back to way too early polls right after the national championship game last year. And Florida's top 15-ish. Preseason magazines come out. I think Athlon had them 11. Lindy's had them 12. Then Phil Steele comes out a couple weeks ago. He doesn't have Florida ranked in his top 25 at all. Florida's not in his top 25. So, the discrepancy is, a top 15-ish team. That's what's mostly out there. But Phil Steele did open some eyes by not having Florida ranked in his top 25. So, when Dan Mullen was hired, Mark, Florida's getting a floor 8-win coach a year. Florida's going to be ranked with an 8-4 record. I have a hard time believing Florida is worse than 8-4 in 2021. And look, and I've asked this question too on our Gators Breakdown Plus chat room and all that stuff. I was like, and I posed the question, just because it's quote unquote a transition year, does that mean you lower expectations? And look, I mean, don't get me wrong. You get in trouble when you compare yourself to Alabama. 2021 is a transition year for Alabama as well. Expectations are still national championship. So Ohio State, Justin Fields is gone. You're losing some talent. You're losing your quarterback. Somewhat of a transition year. Expectation is still Big Ten national championship. For Florida, I'm not sure they're quite at that level, but Florida should be at that level to where you at least can say, all right, we're in a transition year. SEC East is still very, very attainable. And in some ways it is, but everybody's picking Georgia. The overwhelming favorite is Georgia. And, I'm not so sure, Gator fans, I go back to when Dan Mullen was hired, going into year 4, if you necessarily expected Georgia to be an overwhelming favorite over any Florida team in year 4 of Dan Mullen's tenure. So, like you said, it's just all over the place right now. I think you can say Florida's going to give Georgia a run for their money. The schedule is the big difference. You play Alabama, you play LSU before you even play Georgia. What do you look like going into that game? And if you have one loss going into that game, you're still in the thick of things. If you already have lost to Alabama and LSU, then you got your work cut out for you. So it schedules the equalizer there for at least Georgia to get a leg up on Florida by having to play Alabama. The same way Florida did last year. Florida was able to benefit by Georgia having to play Alabama before that game. And basically, you win that game, you got a 2-game advantage in the division. Georgia, I'm pretty sure, is looking at that same scenario this year with a game in Jacksonville. Look, Florida's probably going to have a loss versus Alabama. We can step on their throat by beating them in Jacksonville. So it's expectations in a transition year are weird, but you are Florida. You're supposed to be at a level to where a transition year doesn't necessarily mean you can't go compete.
And as David alluded to, anybody who's tacking on a ton of losses to Florida automatically, you may want to check out the schedule because it's basically 4 automatic wins outside the conference.